On behalf of Santa Maria College community, I would like to acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people and their elders past and present. We acknowledge the continued deep spiritual attachment and relationship of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to this country and commit ourselves to learning from the past and from this learning move forward towards a better future. So let us pray. In the name of the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit. God of mercy, we pray our school will be filled with love. We pray our learning will be full of truth. We pray our college grounds will be full of joy. We pray our friendships will be full of kindness and understanding. And we pray our teachers will be full of wisdom. And we pray that our community will be full of hope. May we find peace in your love. May we build on your truth. May we live with your joy. May we share your forgiveness and rest in your wisdom each and every day. We ask this in your name. Amen. So, the year ahead. These are some of the things that I'm just going to be speaking about fairly briefly, but just to give you an idea of what's important for the Year 12s this year. And then Simone will talk more about the academic access and ATAR pathways for the girls. So, this is the final year for the girls, and I know that some of them are very excited to be here. There's a lot of mixed emotions at the moment. They've had a fantastic college ball. They were beautifully dressed and beautifully behaved, and I feel that it set up a really positive start to the year. So I was very impressed with how they behaved. They had a wonderful time. They've been flowing in and out my door, letting me know how much of a good time they enjoyed on the night, so that was really great. Some of your daughters might be daunted by the prospect of the year ahead, but whatever lies in store for them, they're all excited about the next stage in their journey and moving on after school with either degrees, work or travel. So they've got a lot to look forward to. However, for the present, what we're going to do is just look at how the year will pan out for the girls. Our plan for the year is to guide and assist them to have the best possible year that they can have as they finish their education at Santa. A year in which they're able to achieve their personal best, not just in academic areas, but in sport, leadership, co-curricular and faith activities. So they're going to be well supported in a faith community, and our hope is that they enjoy their final year at the college and they don't feel that it's all bound up in the pressure of getting through their courses. The PCT program is broad and varied. Each week we have an hour for PCT, and we have a variety of guest speakers and activities that take place on that Thursday. And this is either led by myself for the year meeting or with the homeroom teachers in their homerooms. The pastoral care program is a mix of guest speakers from universities, TAFE, TISC, recreation activities such as body conga and meditation, and towards the sets of exams, both mid and mock, they have study in their private, in their PCT sessions. There are also guest speakers from RU Legal, Paul Dillon, and Red Frogs, just to name a few. So we're really kind of preparing them for what happens after school as well, which is really important in their transition. So the focus for PCT is on wellbeing, personal growth, and achieving a balance between study, family, and other activities in their lives, along with their preparation for after school. So, for example, this week we've got the Elevate group returning to present individual homeroom presentations, aptly named The Finishing Line. They've worked with the girls in years 10 and 11, and this is their final presentation in year 12. And they are looking to prepare the girls with workshops to plan and manage their studies, and with the end goal, of course, of achieving success in their chosen pathways. When we're talking about leadership at the college, leadership for our senior students includes modelling good behaviour for all students, wearing the uniform with pride, and mentoring the younger students. All our senior students are considered to be leaders in Year 12 and are expected to be role models and mentors to the younger students, whether they have a formal leadership position at the college or not. And over the year, there will be opportunities for all students to lead in some aspect of college life that will be offered in the course of the year. So it's not just about wearing a badge. So moving on to the homeroom teachers, I'm just going to cover those points as we go through. Here are the homeroom teachers. You will recognise your homeroom teacher from the board. The O'Reilly House have a new homeroom teacher, Joanne Hennessy, who's settling in really well, and the girls seem to have warmed to her really well. So these homeroom teachers are very important because they're the first point of call in the morning for the girls. They have got to know them over the years very well, and they are able to identify when there are stress points for each of the students, and they can also help them to know who to go and see and just be there as a friendly listening ear. And they're a very supportive team, and I am so pleased to be working with them. They're very cohesive, and they are working really well with the year. I have to say that this group of girls are really well liked by the staff. They have a reputation for being pleasant, polite, calm and very respectful, and the staff really, really enjoy working with them, so that's a great compliment to all of you. And I'm always really pleased to say that because it's lovely to have such a nice group to work with. So we talk about a support team with the Year 12s. There's obviously myself and the homeroom teachers. The subject teachers are really important people, and I'll say a little bit more about them in a moment. We have Danny Spark, who's the Deputy of Pastoral Care for staff and students, and she works with me closely and sees a number of students on many occasions. Or is it many occasions? We'll see a number of students. I think you get my drift. Simone Suarez, obviously Deputy of Teaching and Learning, also works very closely with the Year 12 cohort. We have college psychologists Chris and Beth, and of course you, the family. You're the VIPs, you're the very important people, and we really enjoy working with you in a partnership and looking after the girls. Their peers are also a really good, strong support for them as well. And this year we're encouraging them to work in small study groups with students from like activities. Also, Tracy Webster, our new head of boarding, and the house mothers are a really beautifully supportive, wellbeing group of people who look after the girls and take great care of them. So it's a dedicated support team who are helping the students when the need arises, and they are all there with a listening ear to see how they can best support them. Having a support team ensures that they have a calm and focused year, and that they are proactive in seeking help early when things are not going according to plan. And we really hope that they use this support system so that they don't get overwhelmed when we get the pressure points of exams and also the externally set tasks which occur in calendar months. I strongly encourage the girls to work on the premise of the idea of the 24-hour rule. They can't find a solution to a problem in 24 hours, they seek help so that they can solve that problem and move forward in a really positive manner. Year 12 teachers, these are the students' best resource. They offer after hours and during school time support for students who are struggling with content and concepts, and they offer guidance for students who want to push their marks up to that next grade level as well. Teachers will mark practice essays and provide additional support where needed for their students. Students just need to actively seek them out, make a time, and take a list with them. It's very important that they go to their teacher and say, I don't understand concept A, and not just, I don't understand anything. So that's how best a teacher can support the students, by having a specific list and knowing exactly what to prepare for when that student meets with them. Academic tracking of each student's progress is monitored by the subject teachers, by Simone and myself on a regular basis during the term, and we meet with girls as and when we need to. Sometimes it's many times, sometimes it might be just once or twice, but we certainly try and meet with them as soon as we flag that there is an issue with their marks. Your daughter's results can be viewed on Sector Engage, and you are welcome to contact the subject teachers or myself or Simone if you have concerns about your daughter's progress in the subject, or indeed particularly any aspect of her wellbeing. We're here to help. We look forward to your support and we welcome your input, because you are best able to manage how they're going at home. You can see when the stress levels are rising, and you can also identify the problems and to help us to take action by alerting us. So it's a quick phone call or an email, and we can talk about what's going on. So I think for Year 12, there are two key points that I think really help them achieve well. And the first one is to be organised. So being organised gives the students a huge advantage. They're focused, calm and in charge of their agenda. I think having control over their study is a really powerful motivating force, and it encourages them to be purposeful and productive when they have a schedule to follow each day. Study planning tools such as weekly schedules, exam revision timetables, timely exam preparation, stress management strategies all help towards creating a calm and organised work environment for the girls. A dedicated study place at home is essential, everything in its place. The second one is being consistent. Students are encouraged to have a consistent study routine. The routine then becomes a study habit, which is much easier to follow and obviously more enjoyable. And seeing a consistent improvement in their marks is also a great motivation for them to keep going. I often encourage them to just write that ATAR that they want and stick it on their desk and have a look at it every night. It's a bit like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and some girls have told me that it works really well. So just little strategies that they can put in place that will encourage them. Our aim overall is for the girls to have a positive and an enjoyable year as well. We want them to feel confident and prepared for life after school as they move on to their tertiary studies in the workforce. And I think this mindset of being organised and consistent will be of great value in further studies and jobs when they move into the next stage of their life next year. The other day in PCT, they were given a Year 12 guide to study, exam and EST success. So externally set tasks is the EST. It has sound advice and practical tips on organisation, time management, assessment preparation, examination strategies and sound note making. I think it's a bit of a go-to booklet for them, and I hope that they really take advantage of it. Now, the next slide is a little bit hard for you to see on the board, but this is the mental health strategy that has been adopted by the college for 2019 to 21. This development of the mental health strategy was a collaborative one using the co-design process with student ambassadors, staff, parents and the wider student body. Extensive feedback from the college community was gathered, data was collected and collated and resulted in the development of our mental health strategy. The objective across the top to work together to ensure that all Santa Maria College students have the skill set to manage their wellbeing, tackle challenges and thrive in school and life. The 4 focus areas are culture and value, knowledge, skills and support. It's a wee bit hard to see. There are 8 key actions which will guide what we do and help us to reach our objective. So what does this mean for you and your daughter? There's going to be some new and existing strategies offered in the PCT sessions. There will be information, blogs and sessions that you can attend, and ideas for how you can support your daughters will be made available during the year. For example, Sarah Edelman will be presenting a parent forum based on her book called Change Your Thinking. I think the English department have been using this book for a while with the girls, and staff are reading it and enjoying it and having lots of really good discussions about it. So this forum's on February the 26th, and the CRD department will send you out an invitation by try booking if it's not already out there. Our college value this year is compassion, and to be compassionate is to feel for others. We do this by keeping our hearts open to the cause of all people and reaching out to them in a spirit of mercy. This thread of compassion will be woven through the college each year, and this year it is compassion, as I said, and it will be front and centre in a lot of the activities that we do, which link in with our focus on kindness, caring for each other and being inclusive in the way we carry out our duties and in our interactions with each other. The post-school presentations, these are the university visits. So Edith Cowan, TISC, the University of Notre Dame, UWA, Curtin, Murdoch and TAFE all visit at different PCT sessions during the year. They talk about what their degree courses are, what they offer students, how they access their courses. There are also open days for all of these universities, and Marianne Hughes in the Careers Department will be sending out information about the open days, encouraging the girls to attend. And I think it's a really fantastic thing for you to go to with your daughter, because you get to talk to the lecturer, you meet with other students, you can talk to the course organisers, see what job possibilities there are with each of the degrees, and also see how many years are involved in all the important things that go with making that important decision. So the university visits are very important and the girls really enjoy them. And it's also really beneficial when they come to have to put down their 6 preferences towards the end of September. So some important dates. The Mother-Daughter Breakfast is on Sunday, June the 7th at Optus Stadium, which is a new venue for us. We're very excited about this. It's a beautiful location with wonderful city views. 9 o'clock to 11:30 a.m. The Year 12 retreat, this is a compulsory event for all students. It's held every year. It's a 3-day event at the end of term, and it will be at Swanley in the Swan Valley. And it's always one that girls speak really positively about when they come back. And as I said, it is compulsory. The Year 12 Farewell Day is on Thursday, the 22nd of October. All of these dates are in the planner and they'll be advertised well before the events happen. For the Valedictory Celebrations, the Mass and Awards graduation ceremony is on Friday, the 23rd of October at Santa Maria, and 5:30 start. And the Valedictory dinner is the following night, Saturday, the 24th of October, and a 6 p.m. start. Very clear details for both those events will be sent to you closer to the date. The Parent Network representatives for 2020 are Tracy Lim and Jackie Kang, and I'm already working with Tracy and Jackie on preparation for the mother-daughter breakfast, so we're quite excited about what's going to be happening there. Academic dates. It's a well-spaced out year of academic dates. The externally set tasks for the general courses are from the 4th of May to the 8th of May, so a week, and they are closely followed by the WACE examinations, which is our midterm examinations, I should say, and workplace learning for students. The Access program, which is an Access transition program, is a week long and towards the end of September, and that's one where a significant number of workshops are held for the girls to help them prepare for moving into the workforce. The mock examinations start in the last week of term 3, and then the first week of the holidays is a study break, and then the second half of the holidays, the mock examinations continue. The girls will then come back for approximately a week and a half, 10 days, and they will have the chance to review their examination papers, get some very specific help from their teachers, and begin the final preparation for the WACE examinations, which begin on Wednesday, the 2nd of November, and they run through until Friday. So there is plenty of time between now and then to make sure that everything is going well for the girls. So some final comments from me. I think communication is the most important thing to have with your daughter this year. It's really important to keep those conversations going. Get into the habit of asking them what's on their agenda for the next day or what's on your agenda for the week. Active conversations about what you're doing. Keep the dialogue upbeat, positive and encouraging. For many of you, this is just a natural part of your day, and for others, you may need to work on it a little bit. I guess you're just lucky they're not boys, because girls are much more giving in their conversations. So it's worth it, and you will find it's a very affirming experience. They need you to be strong and confident and one who's prepared to say no when it's needed. So their primary focus is really to achieve results that are going to allow them to have choices. As adults, we understand that having choices makes for a good life, one that's filled with promise and opportunity. So let's help them achieve this. I hope that this is a year that you really enjoy as well, as you share it with your daughters. For many of you, it's probably your last year at the college, and for others, this might be your very first experience of Year 12, since your own probably. You're most welcome to email or ring me or any of the Year 12 support team if you have any concerns during the year. Don't hesitate and don't wait. So thank you for attending tonight. We're looking forward to a productive and supportive relationship with you as partners with the college, parents and students as we work towards the best possible pastoral and academic outcome for our students. And as I say, they are just a delightful group of girls to work with, and I'm really looking forward to travelling the journey through the year with them and making sure that they end up in a happy place at the end of the year with no regrets. So I'm going to ask Simone now to speak with you about academic matters in more detail.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for making time to come here this evening. I know that we probably all would have rather been sitting around outside in our shorts and thongs and, just enjoyed the evening, because they are the days are getting a little bit shorter already. I've noticed that the mornings are getting a bit darker and the sun's starting to set a little bit earlier, so autumn's definitely on its way. So thank you again for coming tonight, and also I'll just add that tonight's presentation is actually being recorded. So if there's anything that you miss or you want to go back and have another look at, or there's somebody who wasn't able to make it here tonight, then you will be able to access the information later. So that will be sent out to you from our CRD department in the next few days. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the academic matters, as Claire mentioned. That's me. Let's move on. And I just want to recap on the pathways that we offer, because I know we have a selection of you who have daughters in different pathways, and some of them are a little bit combined. I'm sure you're very familiar with the ATAR and Access pathways so far. And while that does say that 100% of the Access coursework is school assessment, or assessment is based at school, we do have that externally set task coming up in a couple of weeks. For our girls who are doing general courses. So you might have a daughter who is doing her ATAR pathway, but she might have one general course, so she will be expected to sit the externally set task in a few weeks' time. It's in May, actually, and that will be something that is a common task across the state in that course, but while that has a 15% weighting overall, I don't want the girls to be alarmed about that, because it really is feedback for us as schools to make sure we're teaching things as they should be taught, and that our assessment processes are all accurate across the state as well. So there will be that externally set task coming up shortly. You might be interested to know that last year we had 78.9% of our girls doing ATAR and 21% of our girls doing Access. I can't tell you the exact numbers at the moment for this year, because we still have a few girls who are changing, from one course to the next, and I imagine that might happen again for the next few weeks. So let me talk to you a little bit about our results last year. We had our average ATAR was 87.5, ranked 14th in the state. You may have seen that in the papers. We had our top ATAR student received a score of 99.75, and we actually had 3 girls who were above 99.5, which was fantastic. 17 girls with 97 plus ATAR, which is about in keeping with our usual numbers around 18 to 19, but we certainly did have a lot more students doing ATAR, a number of students more doing ATAR last year than we do from each year, so it's usually around 75 to 78% of girls, and 44% of our students achieved an ATAR of 90 plus. So I'll talk a little bit more about the ATAR and what that means later, in case you're not so familiar with that. We had a number of courses that had combined scores in the top 15% across the state, which was fantastic. So you can see there's a range of courses from different areas, so we're seeing some good success there. And individually for our students, we had one general exhibition, which is top 50 students in the state, so that's amazing in the particular exam. We had 6 certificates of excellence, 2 in English, 2 in math applications, and 2 in religion and life ATAR, 31 certificates of distinction and 50 certificates of merit. And those certificates there are based on Year 11 and 12 grades, so your daughters may very well achieve one of these based on her Year 11 and Year 12 results, which is certainly something to be proud of. So we've got some great numbers there. Our Access girls, we had, again, some really fantastic achievements with these students. You'll see we had 29 girls doing Certificate 4, which is wonderful, because many of those girls are able to use that Certificate 4 for direct entry into university, provided they have English competence, depending on what course they want to go into. But you'll see that a number of girls are doing Certificate 3 as well, and some girls do Certificate 3 and a Certificate 4 over their time at the college. So we had 38 girls doing Access last year, so it's a strong cohort, and we had also 164 endorsed units across the college. So endorsed units are those different courses that girls get credit for that are not part of the usual curriculum. So some of your daughters may have already achieved endorsed programs through their workplace learning, part-time work, sporting commitments, production, different tours. If your daughter has done any of those activities and you don't believe that she's applied for an endorsed unit, she could still apply for that and have that noted on her WACE, and that can be used for credit towards her WACE. And it looks fantastic to say, that students have done certain programs outside of what they may have done in the classroom as well. So those things look very favourably upon by the universities and different training institutes. So I want to talk a little bit about our WACE and graduation requirements. So we talk about WACE graduation, and that is to get the secondary certificate. So the WACE stands for the West Australian Certificate of Education. And the certificate, as you see over the side there, is really graduation from secondary school. And this is something that we aim for all of our students to obtain. So in order for a student to receive their WACE, they need to complete 20 units over year 11 and 12. So every semester, every course is equivalent to 1 unit. So therefore that means, 10 courses over the 2 years, but they must do 5 courses in year 12 to reach that minimum of 10 units in year 12. So 5 is the minimum. Some girls in year 12 this year might only be doing 4 courses, so from ATAR or general, if they're doing perhaps an off-site TAFE certificate or something like that. So that also is equivalent to some units as well. So as well as doing their 20 units over the 2 years, they must receive 14 C grades. So that means they should achieve 8 C grades in year 11 and 6 in year 12, meaning 4 courses over the year in year 11 that they receive a C minimum, and 3 courses over the year in year 12 with a C grade minimum. And our students generally don't have problems achieving that because we do counsel, we do track students who maybe need that extra support, and that's why we don't usually endorse students just doing a minimum number of ATAR courses or minimum number of general courses, so they've got a little bit of breathing space. Breadth of study means that students must have List A and List B courses, so at least a minimum of 1 List B, and List B is our maths and sciences kind of courses, so all students must have a List B course. Things like design are also considered List B, so if your daughter isn't doing maths, she may be doing design as her List B course, as well as science is also a List B. They must also reach English competency to get their WACE. So this is for both ATAR and Access students. And English competency can be considered as a NAPLAN Band 8 or that's honour. English competency is getting a C pass in English with honour pass if their NAPLAN in year 9 was not a Band 8. So some students are preparing to sit honour this year in year 10 or year 11 or year 12, and there's certainly a smaller number as we get into year 12 who still require an honour pass. And we also have our service learning completion, which we have a fairly high standard for our girls, but most of your daughters would have already completed all of their service learning because we try and get that completed in year 11, but that also goes towards their WACE. Lots of parents ask about scaling and which courses get scaled, and maybe their daughters may be concerned that the course they're doing is going to get scaled down. Scaling is a very unusual and very complex process, and it's something that I think is done for the right reasons. It's done to try and put all of the courses on an even playing field, so that when you're comparing an A in literature, it's equivalent to an A in English, or when you're getting 80% in biology, how does that compare to a course like physics or, perhaps economics? So they're quite different courses, quite different skill sets. How do we compare those? Because at the end of year 12, students will receive an ATAR that really should be comparable, not just within our state, but also across the country in terms of the capabilities of the students. So if we think about it, just in WA, we've got 189 schools offering different courses, and therefore we've got different schools, different programs, different markers, we have different courses, and also difficulty each year of the exam. So that, you might hear that the chemistry exam last year was really hard. Maybe this year's might be a little bit easier. So how do we know that a student who did chemistry last year and is trying to get into university at the same time as your daughter has the same capability or different capability, where they sit on that continuum? So in order to make the the comparison more consistent, there's a process of standardisation and moderation that occurs. So this is done by SCASA, by our School's Curriculum Standards Authority. And what they do is they look at our school results first of all. So they do a process of moderation. And what they do is they look at the results that we submit to SCASA compared to each student's exam result. So they say, okay, Santa Maria gave this student 80% for English. In her exam, she got 75%, or maybe she got 90%, or maybe she got 70%. They'll look at that result in the raw exam mark in the exam, and then they'll compare that to the school mark, and they will actually moderate our school or that student's mark based on what her exam performance was. Because they might think, well, looks like Santa Maria were a bit generous, or looks like Santa Maria a little hard because she got a really good mark in her exam, so we're going to give her a few more marks. And then they're going to look at standardising, where they look at what the exam result was in English compared to English literature and all the other courses across the state. So they're going to say, well, how did the English exam compare to all those other exams? What was the average? The English exam average was 62%, but the English Lit exam was 55%. So maybe the literature exam was harder. Let's do some adjustments to make sure that we're comparing those courses equally. And then finally, there's the scaling process. And the scaling process is when they then compare the different courses and say, well, how do we make sure that everything is compared equally and fairly? So, students who are doing one course are not disadvantaged because perhaps that course is conceptually harder and the level of skill is higher for that. So if you think about things like the maths courses, we've got maths applications, math methods and maths specialist. And maths specialist is far harder than applications and methods methods is harder than applications. So many students will have to do specialist and methods. So they've got to make sure that they're giving credit where credit's due. If you're doing a hard maths course, how are they going to make sure that they reward the students for doing that? If perhaps they're getting only a 60% in maths specialist, and they could have got 90% in applications if they'd done that, but they've gone in and they've done the harder maths. So this is the process that occurs, and it's very difficult for us to say that any particular course gets scaled or moderated more than another. We have trends over the years, and every year when we get the results back from SCASA, we spend a lot of time analysing that, really to give us information on how we're going and whether we need to focus more on this part of the course or that part of the course, or maybe we're marking too hard, maybe we're marking too easy, and looking at ways that we can improve every year. So I don't want people to get bogged down in the scaling and moderation. What's most important is that your daughters are doing their best in whatever course they're doing, and what will happen will happen. As long as they're well prepared for the exam, if they get a good mark in their exam, especially if it's one equal to or better than what they get from school, then that's going to be favourable for them, because naturally a school-based mark is generally going to be a little higher than the raw exam mark, not always, but sometimes, because school-based marks involve things like assignment work and group tasks and other things that may be less stressful and put them under less pressure than an exam at the end of the year. So scaling and moderation, it's complex, and every year we trust that those processes, and this is the graphic of the process that happens, and it's done at SCASA, that those results all come through to give an ATAR that is fair and comparable for students across the state and across the country, in fact, so that everybody can have the same comparison, I suppose, when they're trying to get into courses that are competitive. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about also, and I'm hoping you remember this from previous presentations I have done, and that's the 10% bonus. Now, I'm not saying that you girls should go and change their courses all of a sudden because they might get a bonus of 10%, but just to keep in mind for those students who are doing a language, doing math methods or math specialist, there's actually a bonus of 10% added to the TEA, or the Tertiary Entrance Aggregate. So basically we've got a scenario there. We've got a student doing religion and life, Italian, methods, English and human biology. And from their top 4 courses, there will be a tertiary entrance aggregate calculated. So basically from the top 4 courses that they complete, they will total those up. But because Italian and math methods get a 10% bonus, the student will get a 6.6 and a 7 addition to their tertiary entrance aggregate. So instead of getting 275, they're actually going to get 288.6. So that's certainly a bonus. So what does that mean? I'll also add, even if one of those courses is not in their top 4, they will still get a bonus of whatever 10% of that mark. So it is beneficial for those girls, even if it's not in their top 4. So what does that mean? So you'll see they're highlighted, 288.7. So if that student got that bonus, she would get an ATAR of around 93. If you compare that to 275.7, that would have only been 90. So if she didn't have that bonus of 10%, she would have gotten an ATAR of 90. She's getting 93 as a result of that, because the ATAR, remember, is a ranking. It's not a percentage. So if we talk about predicted ATARs, and it's a controversial topic, I think, because a predicted ATAR is very difficult to predict. It's easier when you get towards the end of the year, in the pointy end. It's very difficult to do right now because, do we calculate or work out a predicted ATAR just based on a student's exam mark or just based on their school mark? Because, of course, as I said before, the school mark will often be a little bit inflated or higher than we'd expect in the WACE exam. So we kind of try to do a little bit of both, take 50% of the exam mark, 50% of the progressive score or the semester mark, and then work out a predicted ATAR. But on the whole, you'll see there that we look at the average scores of the student. So, for example, a student who's getting 70% as an average, so over their 4 top courses, their average is 70%, they would expect an ATAR of around 90. So if your daughter's aiming for an ATAR around 90, she should be aiming for an average of 70 plus, because, of course, we have to take into account the exams. This is why at 55% we start to get a little alarmed, because 70 is the ATAR that correlates to an average of 55% across the 4 courses. So we look very carefully and very closely track students who are in that 55% average bracket, because an ATAR of 70 will only get you into a limited number of courses. And we know it's not all about going directly to university, but we know a lot of girls, they're aiming to go to university. We want to support them to do that. So Claire and I both will be looking at the students and how they're going, how they're tracking over the year, to make sure if there's any girls who are slipping below that 55, or even 60% average, we'll try to work with them to help them improve, because we know that the school-based mark often comes down as the final combined score by the end of year 12 in the ATAR. So that's just a little bit of a guide to give you an idea of, how does the average convert into an ATAR. But as I said, it's tricky to predict ATARs, especially this time of the year. And there are some good ATAR predictors online. So TISC has a good one because they take into account some of the previous scaling and moderation. So they use different algorithms to work those out. So rather than just do it on your calculator, we'll definitely advise the girls, if they're going to try and work out their predicted ATAR, to use some other mechanism, because it will probably be a bit more accurate. So at the end of, at the beginning of next year, I suppose, your daughters will receive a WASA, a West Australian Statement of Student Achievement, and it's very difficult to see on this, I do apologise, but it basically is the statement where it is the information that can be used for an application to university, to a TAFE, to workplace learning, to a workplace employment position, to apprenticeship or traineeship. So it's a really important document. So it'll state whether that WACE has been achieved, whether the student has received literacy and numeracy has been demonstrated. So that's the reading, writing and numeracy, so NAPLAN or OLNA. And then the different courses that have been completed, what type of course it was, the grade, school mark, and a combined score if it's an ATAR course in Year 12. So that information is really valuable and very important. And the other half, because I couldn't fit it all on this screen because it'd really be tiny, is any vocational education and training certificates that they have received, any endorsed programs they've completed, and their hours of community service. So later on in the year, we'll be running some checks with these documents just to make sure that everything is recorded for the girls, to make sure that everything should show up on their WASA by the beginning of next year. So they will get the WACE certificate and they'll get the WASA as well. And these documents are now available digitally online, so the girls can keep those as a PDF and download them for their records and to keep hold of. So let's talk a little bit about what are the requirements for university entrance, because they do vary a little, and they may have varied a little bit since perhaps you went to university, or perhaps some of your older children may have gone to university. So obviously the public universities, UWA, Murdoch, Curtin and ECU, all require a WACE and competence in English. So that's a scaled score of 50% or better. So even a student who may get a C grade from us may be scaled under 50% after the ATAR exam. And we have found that has happened in a small number of students. So again, that you know, if a student's under sort of 58% in English, ATAR English, after the exam and the scaling and moderation, they can be below 50%, which would mean they wouldn't receive English competence for these universities. However, there are other options I'll talk about in a minute on how you can get competence without, you know, if you didn't receive it in your ATAR. Obviously, students will need an ATAR, and if there are any prerequisites or recommended subjects, they need a pass in those. So not just doing them and not doing them well, but actually a pass. However, if you've looked at a university prospectus recently, you'll find there's fewer and fewer required courses these days, some that are recommended, but there's not as many as there probably were in the past. So that's the minimum for entrance into a public university. Notre Dame, however, is a little bit different. They do need a WACE, as you know, the others do, but English competence is classed as a C from your school or better. So you don't need to you don't need a scaled score above 50. A C grade from your school would be sufficient. An ATAR minimum 70, depending on the course you're going into, of course, because some of them are very competitive, and certainly Notre Dame's growing in their medicine and law fields these days, so there's increasing cut-offs for those courses. A written application, so it's a little bit different. So the girls actually need to write an application. They need to put in a personal statement and a reference from our school, and they need to complete an interview. So the process is a little bit more rigorous, I suppose, to get students into that university. One thing that is also very interesting, and I haven't got the stats for the other universities, but Notre Dame until last year was the only university that had an early offer program. So what that entails is students maybe know that they want to go into a particular course, they know they've got a strong predicted ATAR, they put in an application to Notre Dame ahead of their WACE exams, and many of them could get a guaranteed entry into the university, provided that they met a certain standard and that their predicted ATAR, they met that, they would know they'd get a position in a particular course. And it wasn't for all courses, but for a number of courses. And last year we had 32 students, which was quite a large number of girls getting that offer, which really does reduce the stress for them. It helps them know that they've got guaranteed a position. They don't have to accept it if they don't want to. If they then get through the whole preferences process and find that actually there's something else they wanted to do at a different university or their higher preference, they can actually accept that instead. However, the other universities are getting on the bandwagon, and late last year we had UWA and Murdoch contact us saying, we're doing early offers now. And there was a big scrabble, a lot of girls, you know, putting in applications and lots of reference writing by our deans and people trying to, you know, get those offers all ready to go. And we did have a number of students who gained offers from that process. So the universities are becoming a lot more, what would you say, progressive? Competitive, thanks Jen, competitive. Yeah, they're looking, as I say to the girls, they want bums on seats because they know that they want to have the funds, the HECS. That's what it's about for them, really. So they're going to want to make sure that they're very attractive to students and that students have every opportunity to go there. There's also some wonderful courses and some great changes that are also happening at universities because of that, because they do have to be competitive. They actually need to work for the students' enrolments, which I think is a positive thing. So University of Notre Dame led the way in early offers, but the other unis are getting onto that too, which is wonderful. And certainly a lot of scholarships and information will come to the students about scholarships later in the year. and we do encourage our girls to look into the different scholarships because they can be very lucrative, and some of our girls from last year got some wonderful scholarships which will make their uni life a lot easier. So, talking about the alternative entry to university, and a number of our girls have done this, and a number of our girls who were on access programs last year have got positions at university this year based on taking the pathway that really suited them and doing it really very well. So I talked about the early offers programs, and I've also talked tonight about the English competency requirement for the public universities. So as I said, if the scaled mark is for English is under 50, then that doesn't meet the English competency requirement for universities. However, there is a special tertiary admissions test called the STAT, which may be sat by students who have perhaps got the ATAR they require to get into a course, but they haven't passed English competency. They can sit this 1 hour STAT test and get English competency that way. So that happens early in the year next year, January to February, and can give a number of students the opportunity to get into university, especially access girls who may not have done ATAR English, and they can sit the STAT to get their English competency and use their Cert 4 to get into university. And one thing a new initiative last year was that through our Careers Centre we ran some STAT preparation workshops for the girls who are doing access courses, and we will be running those again this year, and also for any girls whose English results are a little bit of a concern if they're in ATAR English, just to give them a bit of a, set them up well if they do find themselves needing to do the STAT test. There's also the enabling courses, which we used to call bridging courses, and these enabling courses are offered by all the different universities. As you'll see, they've all got different little natty names there, Uni Ready and On Track and things like that. They're generally 14 weeks duration, which tends to be a semester by the time, uni life starts. It's, not much left at the end of the semester comes around. If a student sits one of these enabling programs, they can only do it once at a university. They can't sit the same program at the same university. It gives a notional 70 ATAR. So they may not get into the course they want to do eventually, but they may get into a course and then be able to transfer over time. And then they may begin university in semester 2, so they don't have to wait till the following year to start again with everybody. A lot of the courses can begin in semester 2. So there's a lot of options there for the students who want to get into university. Maybe their ATAR wasn't what they were hoping, maybe they didn't get English competence, maybe they didn't get an ATAR because they're doing the access pathway. And there's a lot of programs that also look at portfolio entry too, where students may be just a little bit below the ATAR cutoff, but they have all of the skills and a lot of talent that would really, make it a wonderful option for them to go to university and study a particular course. Many students elect to sit the UCAT, and the UCAT is used to be called the UMAT. It's the University Clinical Aptitude Test. So it's across Australia and New Zealand if students want to enter medicine, dentistry, or any clinical science across those universities. So this is really a preliminary test for students who are wanting to get into medicine, and it's kind of the fast-track program to get direct entry into medicine. There's a lot of other pathways to get into medicine and medical sciences these days, but students who are really had their heart set on doing medicine, this is the first step in the process. So it's a 2-hour online test that happens in July, and students can register as of the beginning of March, and they close by the 11th of May. The results come out early in September, and that will basically give information to the universities about the aptitude for those subjects with courses. And the tests that things like reasoning and verbal reasoning and problem solving and all of those skills that just aren't about knowledge. So they're really about the aptitude to be a good medical practitioner, which is fantastic, so that we're getting the right people into those courses. So if your daughter's interested in that, there is a whole website with lots of resources, including practice tests, etc., at ucat.edu.au. So have a look at that perhaps. So when we get to the pointy end of the year, we'll start talking about TISC, and TISC is the Tertiary Institution Service Centre, WA, which has been around for many, many years, down in the Netherlands, and this is how students apply for not just university admission but also TAFE, and some of those admissions for universities can be interstate universities as well. So this is the website, just the cover page, and we'll work with the girls on how to access this, what information they can find here. They will each have their individual login. They'll log on to this when they're going to look for their own, do their preferences for university and early offers information. So it's a really one-stop shop for all of those tertiary institutions, pieces of information. So TIS will be something the girls will be very familiar with by the end of the year. They open applications in September. In June, we will have a guest speaker from TIS come and explain to the girls what the process is, what information they need to access on TISC. We'll talk about how they register, about how they put on their preferences, and when they can make changes. So there's a whole process with those round one offers, and then people chop and change their preferences, and then there's another set of offers that are made, and it's quite an involved process if you're familiar with it. But the first round of offers come in December because, of course, the results come out sort of around the 20th of December. So that first stage will happen before the end of the year. And this is just an idea of how the students can put in their 6 preferences with different courses, all at different universities, that they can then move around up and down as they go. Some universities do have a requirement if the girls are applying for a particular scholarship at a university that they must put that university or that course first if they want to be eligible for a particular scholarship. So that's something that we'll explain to the girls as well. The key dates are all there, and there will be specific dates released in March. They haven't released their specific dates yet, but you'll see that online applications open and registration happens in June. So the girls do have to pay a $40 fee to be able to start entering preferences, and they can start then or they can wait till later on. Then after September, the price increases considerably. And then there's dates for specific courses for some of the medical courses that will close at that point because they'll start looking at UCAT. At this stage, 20th of December is the date, 20th to 12th, 2020, for the results being available. And then in January, those WASA and WACE certificates are made available. Certificates recipients are advised, and then there'll be more changes available for preferences on TISC up until mid-January. So it's a bit of a drawn-out process, but we get there in the end. TAFE entry, if any of your daughters are thinking about looking at TAFE for the future, obviously they do apply online using their school-based grades, and they'll need to have an interview with one of their advisors at the TAFE, depending on what course they're looking at doing. They use a 100-point or a point scale of how to get into it or apply for the TAFE qualifications. So if they've already got a certificate 2, 3 or 4, if they've got workplace learning or part-time work, especially in the field they'd like to study, and looking at school grades, there's a point system that they use. So if your daughters are perhaps interested in applying for TAFE, they should have a conversation with Mr. Keskanidis or Mrs. Hughes in the Careers Centre because they have a lot of information. So if your daughter's already doing a cert with us, she might like to look at what certificate she might like to do in the future if she's on a particular pathway. So, I feel like I've been on a marathon, not a sprint. A lot of words and a lot of slides, I apologise. So we always say to the girls, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So as Claire said earlier, the girls should be consistent and measured in the way that they approach the year. So regardless of what courses they're doing and what pathway they're on, a little bit all the time, regularly, is going to be much more effective than leaving it to the last minute, as we all know and we all preach and we all try to live by ourselves. It doesn't always happen. So we really want to help support the girls if there's any concerns that you have about, your daughter perhaps struggling with her study, perhaps she's been unwell, perhaps there's other things going on. Please let us work with you to support her because we really want to, help reduce the anxiety, reduce the stress, because it can be it is a really stressful year. Not all the girls feel that, but we know by the end of the year, some girls start to feel unwell, they've had a massive year, they get a little bit demotivated, and they really do need to, remember that this is probably one of the hardest years of schooling and education they're ever going to experience. And, university, if they're going to university, isn't going to be quite as pressured as this because they'll have a lot of holidays and they'll have a lot of non-contact time. So this is really intense, and we do understand that. We say, and we totally believe that your daughters are not defined by their ATAR score because, I see girls out in the all around the place. In fact, I saw a girl at Fringe on Sunday night, and she said, "You taught me Year 9 science." I said, "Did I?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, fantastic. What are you doing now?" "I'm doing education, secondary education." "Fantastic." She said, "Oh, but not science." So that's all right. That's okay. As long as you're doing what you want to do. And she said, "I'm loving it. I just can't wait to get out there and teach." So I was really excited. I don't know what her ATAR was. I certainly couldn't tell you whether she was a good science student or not a good science student, and that's okay, hopefully, because it's most important is that we inspire the girls to do what they love and to do it well and to realise that ATAR is not the be-all and end-all. So that's really the message that we want to tell the girls. It's wonderful if you can get a fantastic ATAR. It sets you on the path, but it might not be the path you stay on forever. It's just a stepping stone. So they're not defined by their ATAR, as we never were either. Balance is vital. It's the most important thing. Well-being is the most important thing for your daughters, as I'm sure you'd appreciate, because when they're having a bad day, we're all having a bad day. So we really want to make sure that we keep it light, keep it fun, keep it in perspective, because they're under a lot of pressure and we're under a lot of pressure, and we want to make sure that we enjoy the journey. This is a really important and special time for everyone. Teachers are your daughter's best resource, so please always encourage them to ask their teacher, speak to their teacher first, because the teachers are here to help. They want to make sure that your girls are feeling that they're ready for the next thing. They're ready for whatever that assessment might be, that they're actually feeling that they understand the thing that we taught 3 weeks ago that they really never got their head around. And we're more than happy, as Claire said, when they come to us and say, "These 3 things, I'm just not so sure about that yet," or "Can you please check my piece of work here, or my homework, or the essay I've tried to write, or even my mind map and flowcharts I'm trying to use to study from? Is that what I need to be doing?" We really want the girls to be empowered to be proactive and speak to their teachers where they need help, because when they go to university, they're going to need to go and reach out to their tutors or their lecturers, or even just the other people in their courses, because there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of problem solving they have to do for themselves when they get to further studies. But finally, let's not forget what our purpose is, and we have our connecting learning to life attributes that we really think are what will make the difference for our students in the future. If they can have these attributes, at least most of them, under their belt, we really do feel that they'll be well placed for a successful life, and also to contribute really positively to society, because we all work really hard, you, us, and your girls, to have a great outcome from their time at Santa Maria, and we really hope that by helping them to develop a well-rounded person and attitude to life and to each other, that we'll really find they'll make a difference in the world, and that's what we all hope for our daughters and for all of our kids. So that is the aim. The purpose is about all of this. It's not about a mark at the end of it. It's not about what uni course you get into. It's about being the person who makes the difference, and that's what we hope for all of your daughters. So thank you so much for listening to all of this. And if there's anything that you think, "Oh, gee, I need to find out about that," or "Oh, I never knew that and I'm not so sure if I am on the right track or my daughter's on the right track," please do send myself or Claire an email in the next few days, and we can have a conversation and try and clarify anything, or even just have a chat with your daughter if you think there's something that we need to have a touch base about. So thank you so much. I will pass back to Claire now. Good luck for the rest of the year. It's going to go fast, and I hope that it's really successful, and I hope everybody does enjoy it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Simone. That was very instructive. And don't panic, it's all going to be online so that you can have another careful listen and look at it. And as Simone has said, please feel free to contact us anytime if you have any questions or any concerns about your daughter, because it's going to be a great year and a busy year, and I'm hoping that we will all really enjoy it and work together as a team to get them through to where they want to be at the very end, which is hopefully getting into the course or the job, or even a gap year or a growth year, as we like to call it, and then perhaps come back to some study after that. So thank you very much for your attendance tonight. We really appreciate the support that you offer us by coming here tonight, and I hope that you have a really great year. So thank you very much, everyone.